Let me ask you, how do you cope with the loss of a loved one? It's a very tricky question, a very crazy situation, and a one situation that I wouldn't wish on anybody. But if you're faced with it, how do you deal? How do you cope with the loss of a loved one? Today's episode, we're going to talk about different coping mechanisms, different things you can do, even as you take your journey through grieving, even as you take your journey through coping after having lost a loved one. Having lost a mom and a dad, a brother, I'm going to take you through the different ways that I had to cope with the loss of my loved ones. And in my own experience, I'll just translate to you like some of the feelings and some of the triggers that were happening in my life. How to cope with the loss of a loved one. First of all, the first thing to do, you need to acknowledge your pain. Recognize your emotions. Accept that grief can trigger many different and unexpected emotions. And as much as it hurts, it's just a natural and healthy way to give. When you acknowledge your pain, you know this is grief, I'm feeling pain, I'm feeling the way I'm feeling, and it's okay. You don't have to be ashamed of it. Just embrace it as it is, as a natural process of life, and you will be fine. Another thing to do is to first forgive yourself. Forgive yourself for the things that you regret doing or didn't do when the loved one was around. Like for me, I had to forgive myself for not spending so much time with my mom. I have to forgive myself for there's some things I needed to say to her that I didn't. And sometimes I forgive myself even when my dad passed on for not taking my time to be with him and to just get to know him more. So forgive yourself for those things. Forgive yourself for, even if you had an argument with the loved one and now they've passed on and now you're feeling, oh my God, I should have said sorry or whatever. No, 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 no. That's not a healthy way. Just forgive yourself first. And you will find an inner peace. Or even at your silent place, just whisper a word of, you can say like this: dear soul, please forgive me for this and that. And I hope you find it in your heart to just let it go. And you'll find that that is one step of just forgiving yourself and letting go. Another thing is take your time to grieve. Rebuilding your life may be slow. It may come in slow, but eventually you will get there. As much as you're getting so overwhelmed with grief, just see it through a simple step at a time, so that over time you're able to regain strength and meaning to life. And also just take one day at a time. Be patient with yourself. Allow your grief to unfold in a pace that is going to serve you. And don't rush the grief. Because sometimes, like for me, I feel like sometimes my grief, at one point I'm fine. Yeah? And then at another point, just thoughts and emotions just come to my head, and I'm there, I'm thinking about my mom, I'm thinking about my brother, I'm thinking about my dad, and I get so emotional, and I just go like, what? I thought I was over it, but no, you never get over it. You just take your time, and the healing process will happen slowly, and know that the healing process will happen slowly and naturally. And it will happen at a pace that is so naturally and natural for you. Another way of coping with the loss of a loved one is to do it your way. You must understand that this grieving process is so unique and different from different people. For me, it might be different. For my sister, it might be different. For my neighbor, it might be different. So just understand that it's your right to grieve in the unique way that grieving comes to you. You know, like there's really, really, really no right way to grieve. I remember when my dad passed on, I didn't really cry that much because I was like, oh my God, I can't let myself like, you know. And then came a time I cried a lot, yeah. And then I could see some other people crying, and I'm like, okay, you have to be strong. So I mean, grieving is different. And when you do it your way, it's the best way. And there's no right or wrong way. So just take as it comes, and there's no rule book for it. Another thing about coping with the loss of a loved one is don't torment yourself with the loss of a loved one. Don't ask God like, God, why? Why did you take my mom and dad? Why? Why couldn't you have just let them stay? No. Why did this happen to me? Why only me? No, do not ask those why me questions. Because even if you do, you will not get an answer. And even if you were to get an answer, those answers won't be concrete because your ultimate desire is to still have those people around you. So what I can tell you, don't torment yourself with the death of a loved one. Just understand that it's a natural process. Just understand that we have to go through this, and just have acceptance in your heart, and that will really, really go a long way in enabling you to cope with the loss of a loved one. Another thing to do is please, please, do not be too depressed to forget about your duties. Just try and keep energized. Try and keep your mind off the grieving. Try and take your mind to different places, and just, if you have a chore, just do it and do it well. Don't let that, the loss of a loved one, be an excuse for you to abscond what you're supposed to be doing. On the contrary, let it give you strength. Let it give you vigor. Just do it with one heart, knowing even for you, your time is limited. And as much as you're here, it's at your best interest to actually work on those things that are here and now before your time also is taken away from you. I remember when my mom passed, she passed on recently, and I had so many symptoms. I had headaches. I was weak. I couldn't eat. I had no appetite. And I remember my partner telling me, Marge, you have to treat yourself kindly. When you're grieving, these things, many things that you used to do not make sense. And you wouldn't even want to do anything. You just want to sit and stare in space, and just keep on thinking of the loved one who's gone, and you feel like doing absolutely nothing. And I can attest to that. But even as you experience these symptoms, like sometimes you may lose your appetite, please, the lesson here is just to cope with it and understand that when you take good care of yourself, it's the best way of coping with grief. I remember when I was grieving, I was filled with so many emotions. I was angry. I was sad. I was sorrowful. I was numb. The first time that I just got the revelation that I'd lost my mom and my dad, my brother, I was numb. And I tell you, I felt like something has just been taken away from me. Something has just, like I've lost something. And I can't really explain that feeling, but it's just an empty feeling. That's what I just felt empty. And when you realize those emotions, acknowledge them. Feel them as they come. Feel that emptiness. Cry it out, or not cry it out, and just deal with it. But acknowledge those emotions, those numbness, the shock, all the crazy feelings. Just understand that they are normal feelings. And it's good that they're there. and they serve a greater purpose for your self-expression and just you being in that journey of just releasing, so that you can regain calmness at the end of the grieving process. Another thing I discovered during my grieving time, and how I had to cope with everything, was to engage in physical activities. Yeah, they're good. Go outside there, walk, run, ride a bicycle, exercise, heat a bag of, I don't know, just stuff a bag of something and heat it. And you'll find that there's so much sense of relief. Because when you have pent up energy and there's no way of letting them out, it could be destructive, you know. So when you walk, when you release the pent up energy, all this walking and all the running and physical activities and all that stuff will enable you to release the frustration, to release the anger, to release all the negative emotions that are coming, that are assailing you. Outdoor activities are able to take your mind elsewhere, to show you the beauty of the universe, to show you that there's so much to life, to show you even the meaning of life and its seasons as they unfold. So I would advise you, in order to cope with your loss of a loved one, please just take a walk, run, go swimming, just do something, but don't sit in the house and just, dread even coming out. No. I advise you just go out and do something. Meet people. Yeah? Another way to cope with the loss of a loved one is to find a creative outlet. Consider expressing your feelings in an art form, in a creative way. If you're a musician, I'm a musician, I would express it through singing, through writing songs. And if you're an artist, you can express it with your paintings. If you're a writer, express it in your writing. Just express your feelings through creative activities that you enjoy, that you cherish. And also, if you are not a writer or any of these other things, then just take a journal, like take a pen and a paper and just write your feelings, write your emotions, write your thought process, write the memories you had with your loved one. Just do something creative. Or better yet, you can take your time and even just go somewhere and volunteer, do something for other people, and that will make you stop thinking about yourself so much. And as you give yourself to other people, then in turn you'll find a sense of peace. As much as you're troubled, as much as you're grieving, as much as you're going through hell and back again. But when you have the ability to work and to contribute to the society in a range of ways, then you're able to deal with grief, to cope with the loss of a loved one in a more effectual way than if you would have just sat in the house and did nothing and just grieved and, So that's just another way to find any creative outlet that you can just release and come to peace with the loss of the loved one. Another thing is, yes, like I said, get out of the house. Don't stay in the house. I mean, seek support face to face. Yes, your friends will be coming to see you, but the thing about the time now of COVID-19, it's crazy because everybody has been told to isolate themselves. But I remember when my mom passed on, she passed on the 3rd of March, 2020, and I had a service here in Northern Ireland, and invited all my friends who have known for my 2 year stay here, and many people showed up, and I was so overwhelmed and so overjoyed and so thankful from the support of the people who care about me. And that was an instant that I really felt like, oh my gosh, I belong in a community. As much as I'm different from all of them in color, that didn't make any difference. It actually just shows the power of support from people. And they came in droves. We had a service at the church, and then later on had tea. And I got to meet and express my grief to so many of my friends, which every single time I'm talking to my friend, it's like a part of the grief is taken away. Every single time I talk to this other person, it's like another piece of grief is being taken away. Until there came a time during that evening, I was just not grieving, not sad, but just I felt content. First of all, I felt content for the fact that I had support from my community, which I just want to say thank you guys for showing up. And I just felt a sense of a gain and not a loss. Another thing you can do in order to cope with the loss of a loved one is to seek support. Seeking support, and this time maybe professional support. And because sometimes people don't have support like I had. During the death of my dad, I did not have support like I had it to this year when my mother passed on. I just grieved on my own basically. And then is when I wished I had a professional support system, because I didn't have anyone close by to grieve to. So even for you, you might not have people who are going to grieve with you and all that stuff. And especially with this isolation period, you can seek professional support so that they can get you through it. They can get you through this grieving process, and you're able to learn more about the grieving and also how to cope with it. I discovered that in order to cope with the loss of a loved one, you can start creating new traditions. Find ways to connect with the person who's died. You can do this by remembering the things you used to enjoy. Like, for me, I remember my dad, like the tradition my dad created was every single night, he would call all of us and ask us to carry the Bible. We had so many Bibles in the house, and one was in Luya, my tribe, one was in Swahili, one was in English, and people used to, my brothers and sisters used to scramble for the English version because it's the most easiest to read, not like the Swahili or Luya language. So I remember those times when he would just read the Bible to us, and sometimes I was the youngest, so sometimes I would fall asleep and get away with it. But those traditions, I really cherish that kind of tradition. And even as an adult right now, I'm just keeping those traditions that he fostered on us. And I make it a purpose that I read the Bible, and in that moment it's like he's with me, and it's also I'm also getting fed with the gifts of, with the stories and instructions of the Bible. So create new traditions, and even if you can create new tradition, just keep all the memories of the good times you had with your loved one. It will go a long way in enabling you to cope with the loss of a loved one. You may ask yourself, will my life ever get back to normal? Life will not go back to normal. First of all, just know that things have changed. That what used to be is no longer there. So what you have to do is forge on. Try to find a new balance between what you'd normally do with a loved one and create new rituals, create new rhythms. And yes, there are gonna be bad days where you wish your loved one was around, but there's nothing you can do about it. And there's gonna be good days where you're like in cheerful moods and remembering the good stuff, and you need to give yourself time to adjust and in the routines, and also just having a different role as much as you lost your loved one. If you're supporting children after the death of a loved one, please remember that it's the utmost important to tell the kids the truth. I think kids are the people who can take in truth without any filter, and they can take it as it is. Don't hide it from them, because they understand, they know, oh, mommy is gone, daddy is gone, so and so is gone. So just be as truthful as possible, and that will also help them to deal with it. And because they realize something is wrong, they definitely realize that they can't just get past it. They realize that something is wrong. And sometimes I think kids deal with it. Sometimes they wouldn't cry, or sometimes they'll just have a bad mood, or strike or stuff, something like that. But all in all, just be patient with the kids. Be patient with the kids, with the children, and also just don't hide it from them, because they definitely know. Dalai Lama said, to fulfill the vision of the person you loved, or of the loved one. He said that when you fulfill the vision of the person you loved, this brings to you inner strength, and also it brings to you determination. For example, my dad always used to tell me, you're a communicator, communicate. And over the time, he kept on saying that to me, and as I went to the university, and it didn't hit me what that really meant until later on in my life. And I started telling myself, yes, I am a communicator, I need to communicate. That's what dad wanted me to do. That's what dad was always telling me about, And I decided that I will take the chance of being a communicator. And this is how I get to fulfill his wish, by talking about issues that matter, issues in life that are important, issues in life that are relevant, like even this topic, so that I can bring hope, I can bring change to people's lives. And in me doing this is also a way of fulfilling the vision of my dad. And with that, I'm able to do these videos with so much determination, with so much inner strength, without fear of anything, but just for the goodness of communicating and bringing hope and changing lives. So if you know of a wish of a loved one, your mom wanted you to do this, your dad wanted you to do this, and it resonates with you, for you to cope with grief, it's imperative that you fulfill their vision. Also remember, grief is normal. It's part of being human. And as human, we have feelings. So please do not take pills, antidepressants, just because you're grieving. It is not a sickness to grieve, other than it's natural. And when you take those pills, somehow they have the tendency of leading to suicidal thoughts, to doing the wrong things. So just take it easy. It's a natural process, and over time it will fade, and it will even make you stronger. Know that grief is a journey. It's always hard. Yes, it's hard, but it will get easier as time goes by. And it has no shortcuts. You just have to take time, and sometimes it erupts, sometimes it comes down, sometimes you know, it varies, but you grieve at your own pace, and don't fall for a certain way of grieving. No, 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 no. You grieve in your own way, grieve in your own style, grieve as natural for you as possible. And I know grief is scary. It can lead to depressing thoughts, and you just need to talk to someone about these feelings so that at least you can get it out of your chest and out into the world, and that frees you from frustrations and all the crazy things. And then the last thing I would like to ask you is to please do not make life-altering decisions when grieving. This is a time when your mind is not stable, when you're not in your real, senses. So please do not make life-altering decisions during this time. Well, I wish you all the best. I wish you comfort. I wish you strength. I wish you grace. I wish you wisdom. I wish you all the things that you would require even as you go through your grieving process, and also as you cope with the loss of a loved one. And just know you're not alone. You are not alone in this, and you're gonna be okay. So thank you so much. If you like this video, please like, share, subscribe. And if you have any stories about how you've dealt with the loss of a loved one and you'd like to share with us and would love to hear from you. So thank you so much, and all the best in your life even as you cope with the loss of a loved one. Thank you.